back to the Pulse with Willie and Al. What's going on, Al? How you doing?
What's going on, man? It's another beautiful day. We're going to talk some football today. We're going to talk about the mountain of injuries that are going on in the league, and it's going to be a good time.
Absolutely. Well, guys, welcome back to our Battle for the Basement episode today. we got some fun 0 and 2s to start off to be able to talk about here. We'll jump right in. We're going to start reviewing some games for week 3 slate that we've got. First one up here is actually the Chargers in Minnesota. Interesting game here that we have, right? The one of the lines, we've been talking about them all for the last couple of weeks, but this line's actually even on this, right? So we got an even line, and the over under's 54 on it. So let's jump into the battle of 0 and 2 teams now that we've got.
This is literally the battle of the basement, and I said this earlier before we started recording. This game could end in a tie, and that would be the most on-brand thing for both of these teams. It really would.
Yeah, it's I could see it at this point in the season, right? Like both teams are struggling quite a bit. And
Yeah.
it just seems like they're almost there in both games. Like it's theirs for the taking, and then all of a sudden something doesn't go right. And it's weird. Even thinking back to last season, the way Minnesota was playing, right? Like what did you say? It was 11-0 and like one score
Yeah.
games, and like then they're basically winning every single matchup that they have in those tight, close games, and then they start this season and they're just not able to do it out of the gate. So, what do you see
Right.
happening in this game?
I I think this is going to be actually a really close game, and if this is anything like the last two games the Chargers have played, I think they're going to have a lead, and they're going to do something just really dumb, and they're going to blow this game. I think I sent you something over Instagram yesterday. It was they've scored the Chargers have scored 58 points. They have zero turnovers, and they're 0 and 2,
Yeah,
and that's pretty impressive. That's You've got to do some really weird things to be 0 and 2 with those stats.
that's just devastating, right? Like it really is to like put up that many points. Like clearly the offense is clicking, and that's mind you without Eckler, right? Like one of those games he was
Yeah.
there, but he wasn't there last week. Likely not there this week, but like they're not struggling in terms of putting up points, right?
Yeah, they with Herbert, like he's just slinging the ball down the field, and he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He got paid this offseason. He's really becoming one of the better quarterbacks in the league. It's just he's honestly it's one of those things, and I talk about it with Cousins, like when it push comes to shove and it really matters, doesn't really show up. Like he can put up great stats for 3 quarters, but that fourth quarter, man, is the one that gets him. So
You know the
that's why I'm so interested with this game, because both of these quarterbacks are guys that will put up great stats for you for three and a half quarters, but
yeah.
somebody's got to finish this game. And the question is, who is it going to be?
Well, so and that's kind of the interesting piece about it, right? Like even though it's kind of converse to my pick, I definitely think Minnesota's better coached than the Chargers are. In terms of not only their head coach, but like also you've got Brian Flores on defense for Minnesota. Like, yeah, they've been getting run all over, right? I get that and stuff, but like I think they have a better coaching staff in Minnesota, and I trust that coaching staff more. Like, yeah, they're losing some of these games and
Yeah.
stuff, but I really, when push comes to shove, I trust them a lot more than I do Brandon Staley and the Chargers. Um,
Well, that's how I picked this game, is because I just honestly figured that Staley was going to cost them this game in some way, shape, or form. Like he's gonna do something dumb, like go for him like 4th and 5 from like their 30, like in the third quarter. Like he's just gonna do something weird like that, and that's gonna come back and haunt them.
Yeah. And
So
it's a little concerning for me. Like I think, we throw out that stat about the 58.0 turnovers and stuff, and to me that screams like there's a defensive problem there, right? And
yeah,
just I was looking over some stats that they had. There's they're allowing 460 yards a game, man. Like and 350 through the air, 100 on the ground, like which means that the rush is helping to establish that pass, and they can't control it. Like I know they had that crazy first week with Miami and stuff, so that kind of padded some of those stats. But I really think too, like, and listen, Tua is a great quarterback, I don't think Cousins is that far behind him. Like, I don't think Cousins can't throw for 300 plus yards against them. Like, I think that's a distinct possibility in this matchup.
Oh yeah, when you have Addison, Hawkinson, and Jefferson, like that's you could easily put up 300 yards on this defense. And I think too, we talk about it like they have three linebackers that are questionable for this game, and really for the defense for the Chargers, like it just boils down to like, is their front three gonna generate enough pressure on Cousins?
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to because their secondary is good. They have a good secondary, and it just is a matter of if those three can really get some pressure. You know, it's Austin Johnson, it's Sebastian Joseph Day, it's Morgan Fox. Like they've got it. It starts with them,
Yeah.
and if they can't really get a rush on Cousins, then Cousins is just gonna have a field day throwing to Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson.
Right. I think it's part of exploiting that matchup. Like you said, like if the defense can't get there and put pressure on him and kind of rattle him a bit, I think they're going to have a chance to, especially with Bradbury out, right? Like that's a tough thing.
Right.
You saw it last week against Philly and stuff, and now he's questionable this week. I'm hoping he's able to go, but if he's not, you're looking at the same thing, right? Like they know there's a big drop off between Bradbury and his backup, right? So like they're going to be running right over the top there, just trying to get in his face all day.
I will say this though. I watched what I watched with the Eagles last week is Cousins doesn't need a lot of time to get get rid of that ball.
Right.
He is a veteran quarterback, and when you have like a guy like Justin Jefferson to throw to, like it doesn't take much for Jefferson to get open,
Yeah.
and he doesn't need that much time. So, and I think you saw a lot of that last week against Philadelphia, where Cousins was getting the ball out in like under 2 seconds. Like he wasn't taking a lot of sacks, like, and that was really the reason like he was keeping him in that game.
Yeah.
You know, it was just unfortunate with the Vikings. They just couldn't stop the run. Like, and I think that's not going to be a problem with the Vikings this week because if Eckler's not playing, like, I think they're just going to abandon it entirely. Just let Herbert throw it 50 times.
Which is so strange too, because like you look at Minnesota's defense, right, and like they're giving up a ton on the ground, right? Like over 150 yards per game on the ground, and like teams you're seeing like okay, like the passing, they're not giving up too much through the air and stuff, but like teams don't need to pass when you're running that well, that effectively at not even 5 yards a clip, 6 7 yards a clip. Like, dude, you do not need to throw the ball. You can just run it right down their throat and control that clock. And I think it's proven, right? Like against teams like New England when Brady was throwing the ball 50 times a game, when Manning was dropping back and throwing all the time, the more you keep them off of the field, the better chance you have of actually succeeding in the game. So, I definitely see it going back and forth. I hope there's going to be a lot of points scored. I hope it's going to be a fun one to watch. I'm really excited to watch this. And I did not think we were going to be here in week 3 talking about these two teams being 0-2. I really did. Like it just, and not with the circumstances we have here either. I didn't envision that. Just with LA putting up so many points, not turning the ball over, like they're protecting the ball. It just didn't make sense to me. But
my question to you is this: like, do you think Minnesota can run the ball? Like, because it just seems like something they haven't really been able to do this season. And now, granted, they played Philly and they played Tampa, who have two of the better like D lines in the league. But like, I just don't see how Minnesota's going to run the ball. Like I don't like it honestly like they probably don't need to, but like I don't know. I just don't know.
This is the thing. So like, okay, so we talked about it a little bit on the last show about like Alexander Madison filling in for Cook, right? And like how it seems like a bit of a drop off. By the way, like I don't know if you caught it last week, but like people were like there was people on Twitter coming out and like saying some awfully bad stuff to Alexander Madison, like racist stuff, just terrible stuff about this guy. And like the fact that he even had to go out there and kind of like post and say like, hey, like don't do that, it was just sad. It's a sad look on people for doing that, right? Like this is a guy, he's trying to make a living for his family. He's trying to win for his team. He doesn't care about your fantasy team. What he cares about is getting wins on the board
Yeah.
for his team and his team being successful, right? My biggest concern with that, and I didn't want to sidebar that, but I felt it was important to at least bring
No,
up.
absolutely.
Well, my thing is, I think they easily abandon the run. When you're that good through the air, it's like almost silly. And if you can throw like that, right? Like it's almost silly not to, right? Jefferson, like you saw it at the end of the
Yeah.
game, they were just how many times in a row did he go to Jefferson? 4 or 5 times? Like, dude,
Yeah,
you just
and they
can't
couldn't
stop
stop
it.
it.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he's that good, man. So
Yeah.
I do hope they're able to run the ball, but if they're not, I'm not going to be surprised. It's not. I like I said, I just hope for a good, high-scoring game. I want to see both teams. I want to see it go back and forth, and but the way I picked it, I've got the Chargers coming out on top, 34-31.
See, I have the Vikings coming out. Just like I said earlier, I think Brendan Staley's going to cost them this game in some
Yeah.
weird and funky way.
Yeah.
So I have the Vikings 30, Chargers 27.
Yeah, watch me put my foot in my mouth with that. So, one thing before we move on, I just wanted to at least kind of take a look at what the future means for this because both these teams are 0-2. As we look at this game, the Chargers schedule going forward from here: Raiders, Cowboys, Chiefs. It's not really a favorable schedule for them at all. Like that, I don't feel good with them playing any of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, if they lose this game, which I think they're going to, like, there's a world where they're 1-5 after the Chiefs, and like that's not good. Like, I mean, I know that's obvious, but I mean, 1-5, and you're trying to fight for a playoff spot, like,
Yeah,
yeah, I just and I don't see it with them this year. I don't like.
This is the thing. So, like, even if you win that game against the Raiders, like, if they lose this game to Minnesota and they go 0-3 and then they beat the Raiders, okay, yeah, you get that win. The Raiders aren't a great team and stuff. They should win that game, but you're going to get crushed by the Cowboys. Like, it's going to be brutal. Like, you're going to be limping into that game with Kansas City. That is just not, it's a recipe for disaster. It really is. So,
my question to you: if the Chargers lose, how hot do you think the hot seat is for Staley? Because I know he says it's not about the Jacksonville loss, but like, and I said this last week, when you say it's not about something, usually it is about something, right? That's just life. Yeah. So what do you think?
I'll tell you, if they lose this game and then they say they beat the Raiders, I mean, we're looking at two different scenarios here, right? The first being they lose this game and then lose to the Raiders and get upset by them. I think he's gone then. If not, and they win that game against the Raiders, they're supposed to lose to the Cowboys and probably supposed to lose to the Chiefs. But depending on how brutal those losses are, that could also be the end for him too. Like I definitely see a path where that could be it. I don't know. Maybe who is it? Tom Telesco still there as the GM? Like, I don't know. They didn't want to spend the money to get Sean Payton, so they kept him.
Which was wild because Sean Payton with Justin Herbert would have been just
not just
chef's
him.
kiss.
Dude, he would have had
my
Bosa,
God.
Khalil Mack, Derwin James. Dude, that would have been a dream for him there.
Oh man.
I don't know. Let's look at the other side of the coin though. With Minnesota, after this they play the Panthers, Chiefs, Bears, and the 49ers. So, again, they're one of these teams playing the Chiefs, right? Like it doesn't feel good. And then to play the 49ers, like we could be looking at like a again, same thing, right? 1-5, 1-6. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, man. Like,
I'm curious too, if the Vikings somehow lose this game, I would imagine the talk starts happening of, hey, maybe we get rid of Cousins and we just throw away this season.
Dude, I don't want to hear I don't want to wake up and listen to Mike Greenberg talk about Cousins going to the Jets anymore. Dude, he
wants that so badly.
He does. He's trying to speak it into existence. Just shut that door. Don't let that happen, right? Like, I don't want to see that for Cousins. It's unfair pressure for him. And I really do think that Minnesota, with him there, they play well enough that there's a chance they could come back after, like starting out 1-4, 1-5. Like their division is not stellar, right? Like if he was playing in
That's
the
the thing.
AFC, I'd say, okay, there's no way.
Yeah.
But he's playing in the NFC. There's a path for them to still get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, like if they win this game, they have the Panthers next week, which the Panthers are not good. As somebody that watched a whole game, a Carolina Panthers game on Monday night, I can tell you for certain they are not a good team. They're just, it was rough.
So
And the Chiefs, I mean, say what you want, but they're not really putting up points.
now they still
And like,
need to click.
yeah, and like there's a world where like if you have enough weapons on offense, you can catch the Chiefs on a on a weird night. Like look at the Lions.
Yeah.
They didn't even have like all that many great weapons, but like they kind of punched Kansas City in the mouth when they needed to.
Right.
And the Vikings receiving course infinitely better
Mm-hmm.
than the Lions.
Yeah,
And then you have the
create
Bears,
problems.
which yeah, and then you have the Bears, which I mean, they're the Bears. They're not going to really do anything. And like, so there's a world that I think that if the Vikings win this game, they might go on a little run. I mean, they'll probably beat Carolina. They might catch Kansas City on a weird day, and before you know it, yeah, they're back with a winning record up against the 49ers.
Yeah,
like
they could be 3-2 heading into. Well, no, I guess it would be 4-2 at that point heading into that game.
Yeah.
Very, very different. You're right.
Yeah.
And Carolina, to be honest, man, I think they're like 2 years away. I think
Yeah.
they need some stud receivers there to help out Bryce Young. I don't think Mingo's it right now, but maybe he'll get better. But they're about 2 years away, I think, from being real legitimate there.
And you could see it with Bryce Young too. You can tell that he already has some things down that like most rookies don't.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's able to go through progressions pretty well as a rookie. He's not like just like once and then either take a sack or like get or take off running. Like he stands in there and like he looks through his reads, and that's rare for a rookie.
Yeah, definitely is. It's good to see him playing at least to that level. All right, so moving on here, we got Philly at Tampa Bay. I believe this is the first of the Monday night games. Is that right?
Yeah, it's two Monday night games again. Yeah.
First of all, before we get into that, what's your feeling about that? Because I've heard mixed reviews. Like I'm looking at X or Twitter, I guess, and like people are like very for it or very against. There's no one in the middle. I personally don't like it at all, but
I hate it.
Yeah.
Like I just want to watch one football game on Monday.
Yeah.
Like I watch a million games on Sunday for a reason, so I only have to watch one on Monday. Like, just let me have one, please, for the love of God. And two, it's like splitting viewership because both are going on simultaneously. Like,
right. For me, so like it's not just watching the game, right? Like I like the commentary too. I like to understand that stuff. So like, yeah, most TV screens can split games, right? Like you can watch them both at the same time, but like it's impossible to listen to both at the same time. And like that's something that's like like addicting to me. I really like doing that.
Yeah.
Any sports game, like it wouldn't matter what it was that I was watching. I don't want to watch two at once. Like Red Zone's nice because you're always getting that commentary, but you're still only watching one usually at a time unless they go like Octobox, but usually they try to give you like focused footage there, right? So I had to ask that just to figure it out. But all right, jumping into this, we got Philly at Tampa Bay. So Philly's getting 5 points, right? And over under on it's 46. What do you see as like the main thing in this game?
I think this is the game for AJ Brown. Like I think this is his breakout game. I think what's going to happen is Hurts is going to look for AJ Brown more, and I think you're going to see a game where he gets like 9 or 10 receptions.
Mm-hmm.
I really do, and to be honest with you, I think this game's going to be closer than people think it is because, respectfully, like the Tampa Bay defense returns most of everybody. Like they still have most of the guys that won that Super Bowl a few years ago.
Yeah, they got a lot of
like that defense is still really good, and so I think this game is going to be close. But when it all is all said and done, I think that Hurts just has too many weapons, and I think that they'll figure this out and they'll win this in a close one.
Yeah, I see. I'm not even sure Jalen Hurts has to have like a great statistical game for them to win. He's kind of
No,
shown that through the first few weeks and stuff. Like the guy's a winner. I really enjoy watching him play. Like I love having him in fantasy, but like I really, really love watching him play because he's a leader. I really enjoy the
yeah,
fact that like it's not that he needs to throw for 300 yards or rush for 100 yards on the ground. Like he just is making the right plays typically when he has to. Now they've gotten off to a little bit of a slow start this year. I totally get that. Um, I wonder too. Like I don't know if you saw him in the post game interview, but maybe the reason people have been like kind of giving him a hard time and stuff. Like, did you see that lineup he had? The bad lineup, where his head was like,
yeah,
I'm like, oh
yeah.
dude, that barber needs to be on the unemployment line, man. Like, what did he do to him, man? It's crazy. But you're right, man. Like spreading it around, right? I really think this could be AJ Brown's weekend. Devonta Smith's been licking
Yeah,
his chops. Dallas Goddard's done nothing. Like, and he's a
yeah.
playmaker too, right? Like he's not a bad tight end. I think like Philly's one of those teams that like when you have stars at different positions, like even last week, DeAndre Swift was the star, right? They ran the heck out of the ball, right?
Yeah.
You don't you didn't need receivers to have a great game last week because you got it on the ground with that. There was no reason to do anything else, right? So I really think that shows like good signs of a winning team when they're able to win in a bunch of different ways, right?
Yeah. I think what I really appreciate about Jalen Hurts is he knows what he's like a chameleon. And what I mean by that is he is able to do whatever it takes for his team to win.
Yeah.
There are weeks where he's like, hey, I'm gonna have to like run this for like 10 times. Or hey, there's gonna be a week where I'm gonna have to throw this 45 times for like 400 yards. And he always seems to know what his team needs. And that's a sign of a really good leader. When
Yeah.
you have your finger on the pulse with your team, and he just like I said, he just knows what his team needs at all times. And for a team that's 2-0, like people are dunking on this team, like nobody else is talking about another 2-0 team and being like, what's wrong with them? Like
Yeah.
they're fine.
Right.
They're fine. Like they're gonna win 13 or 14 games this year. They're gonna make a deep playoff run. They just gotta stay healthy and they're fine. Like
Yeah.
I'm not worried about them. I'm
Yeah.
not.
Me either, man. Like I really think their biggest test, and the same with this other team I'm going to mention, it's Dallas, right? Dallas's big test is going to be Philly, right? Like you got to play them
Yeah,
twice during the year. Like those are going to be the big hurdles for both teams, and where we really find out like who's the better team, right? My,
absolutely.
my only concern is the defense, right? Like just looking at some of the statistics, like obviously Cousins like crushed them last week through the air, but like when you're giving up 340 yards a game through the air, like it's scary. And I'm looking at the injury list for them. Like their secondary is all banged up, man. Like all these dudes are questionable coming into the week.
Yeah.
Definitely doesn't feel good. Now, like Baker Mayfield is not Matt Stafford. He's not Kirk Cousins. He's not going to go out there, I don't think, and throw for 300 plus yards. But like, do you see a path where like that could happen in this game?
Wait, can Baker Mayfield relate to his young teammates? Because I know Matthew Stafford can't. I'm
Yeah.
just curious. Do you think Baker Mayfield can relate to his young teammates?
Well, I can tell you, he definitely knows how to relate to the old ones because he got Mike Evans out of that wheelchair and then he lit it up last week. So like,
Yeah.
it's listen. I'm a Baker fan, man. Like I know we've talked about it before, but I like seeing the guy win. He's fun to watch, man. Like, and so many people hate on this dude. They want to see him lose. I'm just not one of those people. I'm on the
Well,
pro Baker bandwagon.
you know where it starts with him. It starts with him back in college when he like I can't remember who they were playing, but like he like planted like the flag in like the middle of the field,
Yeah,
and that's where the Baker hate started. And
yeah,
then like he did 802,000 insurance commercials.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
He,
and so I think people just really just hated him for that.
they
Like,
weren't bad though. Like
no,
they weren't good, but they weren't bad when I
also
think
like I'm
about
not
it.
gonna knock the guy for getting paid outside of football. Like
Yeah,
you're the number one pick.
yeah, good
Like
for him.
yeah, get that bag. But I do think that Baker can throw on these guys
Hmm.
because you have Godwin, you have Evans, and like when you have a receiver the size of Mike Evans, life's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Ask Tom Brady.
Yeah,
Like
it
Tom
feels
Brady got a
good.
seventh ring because he was just able to lob it up to Mike Evans whenever he wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, come
It's
on.
it is geez, I'm sitting there thinking like, oh man, did I just like have bad deja vu where I'm like, what are you talking about with Mike Evans? Tom Brady was in Tampa Bay. I can't
Yeah,
I can't like remove that from like it's I can't remember him being in Tampa Bay, but I loved it when he was there. I really did. Like it
yeah.
was awesome. Just every time his name comes up, I always think New England. So it's kind of wild. And the Jets did confirm. Well, maybe it wasn't the Jets confirmed, but Tom Brady did confirm on his podcast he is not coming out of retirement, and the Jets have not called him. So very happy about that.
I was cool when he played for Tampa. When Brady played for Tampa,
Yeah,
I was fine with it. It hurt. It hurt me, but like it is what it is.
you
It's a
had to
business.
be.
I get it.
Belichick
But
didn't give
if
you a choice.
Yeah, but if so help me God, he plays for the Jets, that I'm just gonna lose it. Like
Yeah,
I'm gonna snap. I can't. No, absolutely not.
you and
I
yeah,
That
you
will
and a
be the
million people
biggest
in
betrayal.
Boston.
That'll be the biggest betrayal since Benedict Arnold. Like
Wow. It could
Jesus.
be. It could be, dude. Imagine that
Yeah,
when you look at the roster and you're like, oh man, the Jets. Oh, they've got Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady on the same roster. Right? Like, how funny would that be? Oh man.
oh man.
Well, so like, okay, so Baker doesn't. The interesting thing about Baker is he doesn't need to do it all himself, right? You know, Rashad White, who people were giving a hard time to in the first week and stuff, like we saw him kind of come into his own last year under Brady's wing. He wasn't super productive, but you saw flashes of him being good.
Yeah,
And then he comes out last week, has a good game on the ground and stuff. And you know, he's a back that can catch the ball out of the backfield very well. So
yeah.
when you look at him, like I think I think this is maybe where they're able to kind of exploit the run game against Philly. You know, is that something you see?
I That's tough because Philly's front, their defensive line is one of the better ones in the league.
Yeah.
Like, and you got a guy like Jalen Carter that's anchoring that. That's just making life miserable. I actually don't really think they're going to run the ball well on Tampa,
Hmm.
or I'm sorry, on Philly. But I don't think that's really going to matter because I do think they're going to be able to throw on him.
Right.
And I think it's going to be one of those games where Baker he's throwing it 40 times. Like I think he's going to have to. If Tampa has any real shot at this game, I think that's the way it's got to go with him.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're going to run the ball on Philly. I
Yeah.
don't like you've seen flashes of it, but it's just no. I just don't see it happening with them.
Yeah, you know, this is the thing. I'm not positive if they're like if their defense is going to be able to stop Philly's running game. You know, like I think there's a
Right.
Philly's going to look to pound the rock, right? Especially the way DeAndre Swift was running the ball last week. I think they're going to have some struggles on defense. With that, I don't know. Like it, you know, are they going to be able to stop it? They've got some great playmakers, like you mentioned, from that Super Bowl team. Vita Vea, I mean, he's like four people in one. Devin White, Shaq Barrett, right? Like,
Yeah.
and just a little shout out to Shaq Barrett. Like I saw this and I thought it was so cool. Like last week he had that absolutely horrible interception that Justin Fields threw. But he was able to score a touchdown on it, and he dedicated that to his 2-year-old daughter that passed away in the pool
Yeah.
accident last year, or earlier this year. And it's just you know, sad thing to see, but real feel good story for him. So,
Yeah.
you,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
I don't know. The last thing I want to say about Tampa Bay is like, and I'm not the only one that feels this way, but like I feel like this team is supposed to be bad, but they just aren't playing that way. Like you're seeing teams
Yeah.
keep them in it, right? And like it's for me, I look at that and I'm like, okay, they beat Minnesota in week one. Don't
Mhm.
think that should have happened, but it did.
No.
And even last week, like they're teams are allowing them to stay in games and they're winning it because of that. Like the Bears aren't world beaters, but I definitely picked the Bears to beat them last week. And they embarrassed the Bears. They made them look really, really bad to the point that this week, all everyone's talking about is the Bears are getting the first pick in the draft next year. You know, like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, it's weird because, and I mentioned this earlier. Like Tampa has a lot of the same players that won that Super Bowl a couple of years ago,
Yeah,
and I remember in training camp when there was real talk of like, is it going to be Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask?
yeah.
Like I remember that being a real discussion. I remember hearing about and being like, I don't I don't get why. Like Baker Mayfield's a quarterback that's been in a playoff game. Like
You know,
and like it was wild to me that they let it get to that point.
I almost think Baker was trolling, dude. You saw those videos of him in preseason, right? Or not, maybe it
Yeah.
was a preseason training camp where like he's missing the guy by like 8 yards and stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, this is your quarterback" and stuff. And like, dude, you're seeing him now. He's not missing guys by 8 yards. Like, it's right on him. You know, like it's just, I don't know.
And he's like I think about it too, and he's had a rough couple of years. Like Cleveland brought in Deshaun Watson, and he was like, "Hey, I want out," and like respectful, rightfully so.
Yeah,
Like Cleveland did him dirty. I'm
yeah,
gonna be honest with you. That I didn't like the way that went down.
me
And
either.
then he went to Carolina, and that wasn't a great situation. That
Not
was
at all.
just like that team was like bad all year, and it just wasn't good. He goes to the Rams, and he has that Thursday night game against the Raiders,
Yeah,
drives 98 yards for the game winning score, and like you kind of saw some life in him, and
yep,
I'm glad that he found a team that I think he could be there for the long haul.
yeah, absolutely.
Because you could do a lot worse than Baker Mayfield at quarterback. You
Yeah,
could. As a
definitely.
guy that is currently watching Mac Jones every week, I would love having Baker Mayfield at this point. I would I would relish in that.
Maybe Bill would too.
Yeah,
Well, let's look at this real quick. So I ended up having I picked Philly to win 34-14 over Tampa Bay. What did you have for this?
I think this game's gonna be a little closer. I think Philly's gonna win, but I think it's 27-20. I
Okay.
think that Baker's gonna keep him in this game, and I just don't think they're gonna have enough firepower to match Philly in the end.
Okay. Well, just looking ahead real quick. So Philly after this game ends up going Commanders, Rams, Jets, and then Dolphins. So I personally only see Philly really getting challenged by the Dolphins in that. Um, maybe they sleep and get beat up by Sam Howell and the Commanders, or maybe they.
Commanders beat them last year on Thursday on a Thursday night game. Like it's possible, man. Like
It's
and they have a better offensive coordinator this year.
yeah,
So
Bieniemy's just he's awesome, man. He's very very smart. And this is the thing, like those division games, it's tough to sleep on those because they see you
yeah.
twice a year, man. They know you better than anybody else. So,
And the NFC East too, all four teams, that's like they're all tough. Like no that not one game is a gimme in that division.
right.
Like they're gonna be dogfights.
Yeah.
Like
And I look at
so
just Tampa Bay, Saints, Lions, Falcons, Bills, like that's man, like Tampa, yeah, it could be a curse being 2-0, but like the best curse you could have, right? But like that's a brutal schedule to go up against. Saints have a good defense. Derek Carr seems to be doing things there. Again, they're not great, but like they're doing okay. The Lions definitely seem better. The Falcons are just good. They run the piss out of the ball, man. Like I definitely see them milking a clock against Tampa Bay. And then the Bills, like that's just those are four tough games, man. They really are.
I see I look at that a little differently. I think
Mm-hmm.
the Saints, Lions, Falcons, those are all really winnable games. Respectfully. I Derek Carr sure is doing well with the Saints, but like he's not like I'm not like wowed by him. Like
Yeah.
he's Derek Carr. Like in the Lions, like I know they have all this expectation, all this hype on him, but like
They just got banged up bad this week.
yeah,
Yep.
like they're gonna catch the Lions at the right time, and like with the Falcons, like that defensive line's gonna give Ritter nightmares.
Yeah.
Like and like if there's gonna be a line that's gonna stop the run, it could be Tampa. So like I think those are all winnable games, and there's a world where like they're like 5-3 after 8 games, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, and they're hanging around for the division. Like they're gonna hang around for a wild card spot. Like,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
the
this team's kind of for real. Like, I think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna beat the Eagles, but like I think they're gonna play them close. So
definitely. All right, let's move on here. We've got the Rams at Cincinnati. This is the second Monday night game, and they're giving Cincinnati 2.5, and the over/under on it's 43.5. So, we had discussed this before, but I really think the storyline here is Joe Burrow, right? Like it with him being questionable. There's rumors they're going to sit him down for maybe a couple weeks and stuff. Like this offense goes through him, right? Like if he's not when you have a quarterback like Joe Burrow, you can't just plug and play your backup, right? Like it's just not
yeah,
it's not the same, right? Like the things that he does there, a backup can't do, right? Like
yeah. You and I were going before we started recording. You and I both realized that we didn't know who Cincinnati's backup was because
yeah.
why would we? It's a guy named like Jake Browning, and he first year guy out of Washington who's 27 years old. Like I I I don't think this game's gonna go well for the Bengals. I don't. Even if Burrow plays, like, and I know we talked about this before, but Burrow with that calf injury, he can't step into throws. Like
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? And like also he can't scramble. And Aaron Donald plays for the Los Angeles Rams, and that man makes a living on quarterbacks. And if he knows that Burrow's hurt, like that's blood in the water, my man. I don't know.
Yeah, I heard a statistic the other day talking about Joe Burrow being like the most hit quarterback like the last 3 years, and like that takes a toll on you. Like in the pocket, he's the
Yeah,
most hit, and I guess it's not even close. Like, I just when you get hit that much, I feel like it doesn't matter. Cincinnati Bengals, same team, same problems we've been talking about the last 3 years, right? Like ever since they went to that Super Bowl, it's like, oh, we got to protect Joe Burrow. Oh, let's go out and sign this guy. They get Leo Collins. They bring him in. They bring in the guard from Tampa Bay. Still getting hit
yeah,
all over the place and stuff. Now they sign Orlando Brown in the offseason. This is supposed to fix things and stuff. Still getting hit all over the place. So like
yeah.
it's just it makes me wonder like dude they've got to figure it out because like that window of being able to have Chase and Higgins and all of these guys like it's closing, right? Like these guys need to get paid, right?
Yeah. And I remember too in the draft. I remember when they took Jamar Chase because the talk was they were going to take Penny Sewell, who the
Mm,
Lions ended up taking.
yeah.
And I remember being one of those people being like, yeah, they have some good weapons on offense, but like Sewell's probably going to be the best offensive tackle in this draft. Why are you not taking this guy? And like I mean, it's been great. They went to a Super Bowl with Chase. Like I can't really knock him for it, but like there is another side to that, and that bill's coming due. That bill's coming due where like Burrow needs like they gotta protect Burrow somehow. Like he's just you said it, like he's getting hit so much. It reminds me of when I'm gonna go back a little bit here. When the Houston Texans first came into the league, they
Hmm.
had David Carr, Derek's brother, and it was the same thing. He
Yeah.
was just getting hit week after week after week. Like if I remember correctly, and if I'm wrong, please, like somebody out there, please tell me. But for a while, he held the record for most times being sacked in a season,
Yeah. Yep. And I remember
and
because
it was a large number.
it was in the Colts division, man. Like when they go up and he'd get sacked by like Freeney 3 times in the game, and then Robert Mathis get 2 sacks as well. Like it was just
Yeah,
he got hit all over the place, man. Like it's just I don't know. I feel like it's the same thing, like a broken record with that. One thing I was going to ask you about that, could it be that this team is just not that good? Like they lost Jesse Bates in the offseason at safety. Like he's playing very well for Atlanta. Like I don't know. Are they just not that good?
it's tough because Burrow getting hurt in the preseason really kind of excuse my language, kind of fucked things up for them.
Hmm.
I think that if he's completely healthy, I think this is different
Yeah.
because he's able to stand in the pocket longer and he's able to like make those throws and step into throws. But because he's not healthy, I'm just concerned that he's not going to be able to like, put any mustard on it to get it to these guys.
Right.
And I know that, like I said before, when they lost, it was like, they started 0-2 last year, and it's fine. But like Burrow was healthy last season.
Yeah.
This season he's not, and like defensively, they're just a mess. They really are. I thought that them losing Bates was going to be tough. I didn't realize how much he meant to that team.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people did, and like this is the other thing too. Like we could put a lot of blame on him because it's obvious when you see the offense not clicking and stuff. But this defense has not been great either. I mean, you're giving up 200 yards on the ground. Like it reminds me of like some of the old Colts teams when like, dude, Jacksonville was just running the ball against them. They had like 350 yards rushing in a game, and they're like, dude, just keep running it. Like there's nothing, and
Yeah,
when you can't stop the run, like you just get out muscled, man, out brute. Like there's nothing. You don't have an opportunity to get a rhythm going when you're getting beat up that bad, man. Like it's,
yeah,
I don't know. I hope they're able to get it figured out because I really like this team. Like that was the team I picked to win the Super Bowl this year. So I really hope they're able to fix these things. But I'm looking ahead at their schedule: Titans, Cardinals, Seahawks, 49ers, and Bills. Like, dude, they've got. I wouldn't say the Titans are a cupcake game because they're well coached with Mike Vrabel, but like Cardinals should be a win. The Seahawks, like Seahawks, Niners, and then the Bills, like that's a gauntlet, dude. That is a
yeah.
gauntlet, right?
That
Like,
that slate would have been hard with a healthy Joe Burrow, and if you're not going to either play him or he still has the calf injury, like that's boy. And I'll tell you, especially with the 49ers too, that defense will eat him
well,
alive.
think about
Like,
this for a second. If they sit him down for 4 weeks, right? That means they're sitting him this week: Titans, Cardinals, Seahawks. He comes back, and the first two teams he needs to play are the 49ers and the Bills. Oh,
yeah.
dude, that is brutal. Brutal,
Well, I
man.
think too with Cincinnati, what I've really like struggled with is they haven't. I know they drafted Chase, and like that was a home run pick, but like a lot of like they just haven't been nailing the draft the last couple of
Yeah.
years. Like that's part of like when you become successful, your first round draft picks are in the low 20s, or the high 20s, like so you're not going to get as you have to really be careful and really nail those picks. And they're just not developing any linemen, and they're not like something's got to give with this team.
But
And maybe this is the year they just bottom out, and like they're not going to tank for Caleb Williams. That's ridiculous.
yeah.
But like if they get that number one pick, like maybe they do what the Bears did last year and just trade it for a buttload of stuff. Like,
But this is the thing that bugs me too. Is like, okay, so like we're talking about first round picks here. Like you get other picks in the draft too. Like look at Cleveland,
absolutely.
fourth round pick Dewan Jones. Like he's 6'8", 380. Like that dude's
Yeah.
a big man. Like, and he's blocking. Like he's doing very well in the NFL. His grades are very very high now that he's had to step in for Conklin. So like, dude, there's guys there in the later rounds that you can
Yeah.
snag to shore up that line. It just, I don't know. Again, I feel like it's a broken record. We're just going through the same thing for them over and over.
And I think too with the last thing with the Bengals, I think that notoriously you've read all about it. Like they're a really cheap team when it comes to their scouting department, and that has really shown. Like they're not nailing. And you said it on that. Like they're not nailing those second round picks, those third round picks, those fourth round picks. Like most teams like can do a decent job at that because they have a good scouting department. For Cincinnati, like it's not really a thing. Like them drafting Chase, like I could have told you that he was going to be good.
Yeah,
Like,
you're right.
like,
Well,
but yeah, they're not nailing those late round picks. They're not building depth. They're just a house of cards.
mhm. Well, conversely, someone that did actually build through the draft, it seems like the Rams, because even though they traded away their entire life for a Super Bowl win, they've they've also seemed to like overperform by what most experts would say this year. obviously, like everyone's talking about Puka Nakua, but let's talk for a minute about Matt Stafford because like this guy's playing well. A lot of confusion, I guess, coming out. You know, mixed reports about like, oh, this guy's having a hard time relating to the team, the younger guys, and all of it,
Yeah.
because it's one of the youngest rosters in the NFL. But they seem to be clicking 2 weeks in, you know, and like playing good football.
Yeah. Well, I don't think this is a fact, but I think the last time the Rams had a first round pick was the Reagan administration. I can't be so sure about that, but that's what it seems like. And also too, when that story came out about Stafford, or so is his wife that was saying that like he can't relate to the younger teammates.
Yeah.
All I just pictured was the Steve Buscemi meme where he's got the backwards cap and he's just like, "Hello, fellow kids." Like
Yeah.
that's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah.
And but like Stafford has like he's played well, man. Like
Yeah.
he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's been in the league since what 2008. He's been in there for a long time. He's not turning the ball over a ton. He's not throwing a ton of touchdowns, but he's also not turning the ball over. He's like a juiced up game manager.
Well, let me ask you something about that because, like, listen, Stafford, I view him as a guy that like makes everyone around him better. I think he's very, very tough. I think he's not afraid to throw the ball, and like at the end of the day, are we talking about a guy that's a Hall of Famer?
That's so tough because the stats are so skewed now because it's such a passing league.
Yep.
I think him winning that Super Bowl will mean he'll get in the Hall of Fame.
Like he played on
I
one of the worst, not teams. He played for one of the worst organizations that we knew growing up, right? Like,
Yeah.
and this guy, you never heard a peep out of him, right? Never.
Yeah.
Like this dude just kept showing up every week. Like, yeah, he had Calvin Johnson, but they didn't really have much else on that team, right? Like, and
Yeah.
then he goes to the Rams within 1 year, wins a Super Bowl. Like he just like you see this guy, you see the talent and stuff. Like I'm a big Dan Orlovsky fan, and I know he's very close with Matt Stafford because they played together and stuff. But when I hear him talk about Matt Stafford, like he really does seem like he's a great quarterback and a great ambassador for the sport. I think based on his mechanics, based on the way the stats that he's put up, I really think like he does have a shot at getting into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I was worried about him coming into the season because he had the neck injury last year, and
Hmm.
neck injuries with quarterbacks, that's always a we that's usually a sign of like, okay, the drop off is coming for him.
Right.
And like I said, like he has done just enough. He's thrown for 300 yards a game. You know, he's not, like I said, not throwing. He's only has one touchdown pass, only two picks, but like he's keeping them in these games and he's doing what he needs to do. Like he kept them in that 49ers game for a long time. Like it just that was a game where like the 49ers were just a more talented team and the better team won out eventually. Like they just like that game they just ran out of like the Rams just ran out of gas.
Well,
That's
so
all it was.
well, so the
They
four.
punched them in the mouth for a while though.
Well, so and that's the thing too. Like I agree with you on that. The 49ers like are sitting there with four aces, right? Like they've got all face cards and all the aces in their
Yep.
hand. Dude, the Rams are missing their best player, right? Like on offense at least, Cooper Cup. Like dude, they're getting it done without him and being competitive without him. Like this is a guy that they talked about like okay, like yeah, he re-aggravated the hamstring. Like you may not see him this year. Now we're looking at this team and we're like oh no, like this dude's probably gonna come back onto a winning football team and like slide right in and has a chance to be very, very productive.
Yeah, it's wild because at the start of this year, I just assumed that this division was going to be top heavy. Like I thought it was just going to be the 49ers and the Seahawks were going to win like 11 games apiece or 12 games. And then it was just going to be the Rams and the Cardinals just being dumpster fires.
Mm-hmm.
And we're right with the Cardinals.
Yep.
They're a weirdly competitive dumpster fire, which is funny to me.
Yep.
Um, but they are a dumpster fire. They are. But the Rams are, you know, it helps that they have a really good coach. They're very well coached and they're very well prepared. Sean McVay, one of the better coaches in the league, like to wow, some truck driving by, Jesus. Uh, but but yeah, like they're a well coached team, and I think as long as they have McVay, and it also helps. They have a guy like Aaron Donald, who is an all world generational talent
Yeah,
that is just keeping them in games defensively. Like,
absolutely. Yeah, it's.
yeah,
I mean, he's an absolute force. I love watching him play as well, and I think as long as he's in there, they got a chance, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to skip ahead, but I'm looking at like the schedule they have, right? Like next they go Colts, Eagles, Cardinals, Steelers, and Cowboys. Like there's 3 games on there that I see that are winnable, right? Like I don't. This is the thing. No team in the NFL is like looking at the schedule and is like, oh, we got the Rams. That's an easy win because they know if
Yeah,
Aaron Donald's there, it's gonna be tough. Like they're not just gonna blow him out, right? Like they're gonna have problems
right.
because eventually he's gonna get through that line, right?
Well, there's a world where the Rams are 5-3 after that Cowboys game, and like
Yeah.
I think that's if you had told me they were going to win 5 games this season, I would have bet the under. I would have bet the under by a mile, and here they are. Like they're going to hang around for a while. And like I'm going to say a thing. I wouldn't be like shocked if they were like one of the last wild card teams to get in.
Ooh.
There was no part of me that would be shocked by that.
Okay.
Like with the talent they have on offense, with Cooper, hopefully getting Cooper Cup back,
Yeah.
and Donald on defense, like if Stafford can just keep giving them like 80% of what he used to be, like that's all they need.
Yeah.
Like
I know we
like I
didn't.
said, he's just a souped up game manager.
Yeah. I know we didn't mention it. There, it looks like Cam Akers has played his last down finally for the Rams and stuff. Like they had that blow up last year, but they came out and they said, "Listen, we're going to try to trade this guy, but we don't want him here." Kyron Williams has stepped in and played very, very well. At
Yeah,
the running back position for them. So, let's see. I think it's going to be an exciting game, and I ended up picking. Let's see on this. I ended up picking the Rams beating Cincinnati 28-13. What about you?
um, that's tough because I picked this game based on that. I think that Joe Burrow is going to play and he's going to
Ooh,
like kind of keep him hanging around because there's just no way that this team can be that bad 3 weeks in a row.
yeah,
I think they're going to lose this game, but I think they're going to. I think the Rams are going to win 23-20.
yeah. I see.
Yeah,
For me, I picked it and thinking that Burrow's going to get shut down for a bit. But we'll see. We'll see what
yeah,
happens. I know we're still a few days away from the weekend, so let's see what the
yeah,
prognosis is on that.
yeah. And disclaimer: we are filming this today on a Wednesday, so
Yeah,
like there could be a ton that happens from now till Monday. But
that
as
could
of right now, it looks like Burrow's playing.
it
But
could
who
change
knows?
our mind a little bit, right? Like,
Yeah,
all right. So let's move forward here. We'll knock out some injuries real quick, just some updates on those, and then we'll wrap it up. Um,
yeah. A lot of injuries right now. Big name
yeah,
players.
like we talked about the Lions before. David Montgomery, like they're definitely gonna miss him for a few weeks. He's got the quad injury that just didn't
Yeah,
look good, and hopefully they're able to still you know keep the ship afloat in the time that he's going to be gone because he's definitely been a welcome sight in Detroit for them. Running the ball. I know Amon Ra, they talked about him having turf toe. It looks like it's very minor. They put a plate in his shoe, and he came back in and played the rest of the game. So he shouldn't be bad for that. I don't think you can monitor him, but I don't think it's going to be in jeopardy of him missing the game. Maybe a little slight downtick in terms of production for him, but
yeah,
um, OBJ, they had him on here with an ankle injury and stuff, but I think they said that he's going to be okay. He'll be back. It was pretty minor and stuff. Some of the more serious ones that we're looking at, though, Devontae Adams, if he goes into concussion protocol, he's not playing, right, on Sunday.
yeah.
But it definitely, I know he was having concussion symptoms, so I don't know how you don't go into protocol if that happens, but we'll have to kind of monitor that and see what happens with him. Um,
Yeah.
Same thing with Anthony Richardson, right? Like if he clears protocol and he's set to play, it's kind of scary. But I would hope they'd keep him out at least one more week to make sure this guy that you spent a high first round draft pick on is not going to
Yeah.
be shook up, right?
I always think too with concussions, I don't understand why if I were running the NFL, I would make it mandatory that if you suffer a concussion, you have to miss the next week's game. Like,
Yeah,
no, I don't care if you pass all the tests. Like, your brain needs time to heal.
right.
Like,
At least the next week, right? Like,
yeah,
that's just a tough thing. And it's not like we're sitting here talking about like that happened on Sunday and he's playing on Thursday. Like it's a full 7 days, but at the same time, like, your body needs to be able to recover. And as I'm going through these, I'm realizing even more like all the concussions that happened just this weekend, right? Like Jalen
yeah,
Waddle, Logan Thomas, right? You still, even with Devontae Adams possibly being in concussion protocol, you had Jacoby Myers there too. Like he had one the week before. Like it just, I don't know, man. It's kind of scary to see that stuff. One thing that's also kind of alarming for me, and I don't know if you saw it, but Saquon went out the other night, and it
yeah.
didn't look good. But they're saying now they're calling him a fast healer, um, and he's going to turn around and play on Thursday night. What? Like, I guess that's what they're talking about. That there's a chance, but in my mind, like, there's no way. Even if I had him in fantasy, I'm playing him this week. Not against that 49ers D. I just think
Well, I don't understand why you just don't give him the extra rest, let him have a full 10 days, and then
yeah,
like
yeah.
just let him. Yeah, I that's dumb because they're not beating San Francisco.
Yeah,
Like they're not.
and I see
Like
Breida stepping into that role. But you're right. Like
yeah,
even with Breida there, I just don't see them being competitive in that game either. Like San Fran is just a cut above them.
right.
But yeah, so hopefully has a speedy recovery. Brandon Ayuk, kind of interesting with that AC joint. Had that shoulder injury and stuff. Didn't look good, right? Like it just didn't.
Yeah,
It didn't look good at all. I'm hoping he's going to be okay. He's been electrifying to start the season. A lot of fun to watch him. Just don't want to see him banged up like that. Jamal Williams. It seems like every running back in New Orleans is either suspended or hurt. And that's kind of the way it goes. But if they can make it through this next week, I wouldn't expect Jamal Williams to suit up this week. You're probably looking at Tony Jones
no.
Jr. or maybe Kendre Miller coming in, the rookie, but he's even coming back from a hamstring. But if they can make it through this week, they get Alvin Kamara back next week. So,
Yeah.
who knows what's going to happen with that. But were there any other injuries you saw that ended up coming up?
No, but I do want to note that all three of my starting running backs in my fantasy guillotine league are hurt right now.
Yeah.
Like it is just not it's not pretty right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
I'm just trying to survive a week. Well, I need to survive one more week, and
Oh,
then maybe Eckler comes back. Maybe Jones comes back. I mean, Jamal Williams, like he's going to take a back seat to when Kamara comes back, but I think he's still going to get enough touches out of the backfield and catches. I'm not really worried about that, but yeah, it's just brutal right
yeah,
now.
that's a tough thing, man. Real tough. I know they're saying Eckler is probably going to be out this week, which doesn't
Yeah,
bode well for LA's chances. But it seems like they're doing all right with Joshua Kelly there. So,
yeah.
maybe there's someone you can snag off the wire. But I think that's it in terms of injuries that we have. I know, going forward, I think we're going to try to focus on what 3 games, 3-4 games a week to try to knock those out and stuff. Make sure we give you guys good
Yeah.
coverage on that. But again, just wanted to thank everyone. We really appreciate the constructive feedback. The comments have been pouring in. We really, really appreciate that. So if there's something you want us to discuss going forward, if there's something that you think we're right about, wrong about, fire it up. Let us know. Like we want to
And
be challenged,
disclaimer,
but
I'm wrong on most things.
yeah,
So like,
yeah.
yeah, like
The the
I
interesting
tell me I'm wrong, please. I live for that.
I think the interesting thing is we actually accept responsibility when we're wrong. So we're different, right? Like
Oh yeah.
I think that's probably a good piece about it. But if you have any questions, anything like that, you want to shoot us over something to talk about, you can email us at thepulsewa@gmail.com. Find us here on YouTube, and again, you can find me, Willie Creeman, on Twitter at Willie Creeman FF. So anything else that comes up, just let us know. But again, love to have another one with you, Al. Really appreciate it, bro.
You too, Willie. Have a good one, man.
Yeah, you too. Take care, bro.